We're all set.
Member Doyle, thank you. It is now 9:31, Friday, June 14th. We'll resume open session of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy Board meeting for June 2024. We will now begin the annual board business meeting, starting with an update on board and public health and pharmacy formulary advisory committee appointments with Executive Director Fox.
Thank you, President Doyle and members of the board. It's a short, brief update as relates to the board and the PFAC for short. The governor had nominated several individuals that have been confirmed by the Senate. So for board members that are appointed, Amy Kirkbride for a pharmacist position, which she will start in July 1. Also confirmed is Victoria Kroger, pharmacist position will start July 1. And I believe, and I apologize in advance if I butcher, I think it's Anna Pinetto, certified pharmacy technician, and she will start July 1 as well. For the PFAC, we've been trying to recruit for one main position for a while, and just recently appointed and confirmed is Dr. Robin Virgin. She started her term June 1st, and Courtney Sellers is a pharmacist, and she started the position with the PFAC back in May 1st. So those rounds out the board members and the PFAC members that were appointed, nominated, and confirmed by the Senate. That I'll turn it back to you, President Doyle.
Board Member Doyle speaking. Congratulations to those new appointees to the board and also the formulary committee. Thank you for your upcoming service or service that has already started, and over best wishes over the next 2 to 4 years. Thank you again. We will now begin the board election process, starting with Executive Director Fox.
Thank you, President Doyle. Each year, the board is directed by ORS 689-185 to elect officers to serve one-year terms. The officers elected are president and vice president. Board members may nominate any board member for each office at the request of the current president. Pursuant to ORS 689-185, parent 1, the State Board of Pharmacy shall meet at least once every 3 months to transact its business. One such meeting held during each fiscal year of the state shall be designated by rule as the annual meeting and shall be for the purpose of electing officers and for the reorganization of the board. And during the break, you should have the nomination forms at your places. So when we go through, you'll be able to use those, and we'll give some more instructions on those forms very shortly. For president may administer oaths in connection with the duties of the board, shall preside at all meetings of the board, and shall be responsible for the performance of all the duties and functions of the board required or permitted by this chapter. The president of the board shall have power to call special meetings subject to ORS 689-185 when it may be deemed necessary or upon request of a majority of the members. Represents the board to the media, legislature, governor's office, and interested parties as necessary. The vice president position, if the president is absent or unable to preside, the vice president shall preside, may administer oaths in connection with the duties of the board, may represent the board in absence of the president. Voting for vice president followed by president will proceed after all nominations are made. If there is more than one nominee, voting will be in alphabetical order by last name. Board members will choose nominees using a paper nomination form. Agency staff will collect the paper nomination form from each board member, and I will state the chosen nominee from each individual board member's nomination form. If there is a tie, a revote for the top 2 candidates will occur until the tie is broken. New board president and vice president terms will begin July 1, 2024. With that, President Doyle, I'll turn it back over to you for the election of new officers.
Member Doyle, thank you, Executive Director Fox. I will now accept nominations for Vice President of the Board. Please use the provided paper nomination form. Select your nominee and provide your nomination form to the agency staff. Executive Director Fox, before marking, I would just hold off for just a second. Executive Director Fox will announce each nominee selected by each board member. The board member accepts the nomination. Each candidate has 1 minute to express their interest to the board prior to voting. We'll now turn it over to Executive Director Fox. So again, if you could please, I know that there's been some additional work by board staff with actually managing these. If one could take us, provide me at least a stepwise process of how it will actually transpire, that'd be helpful.
Staff Member Melvin, I can do that for you. So I drafted the forms. So each of the forms before each board member, you're going to see a packet. I gave you multiple. We're going to start with Vice President first. Your name, you'll notice, is in the top header of the form. You will just check off or circle the name of the person you would like to nominate, and then you will just simply sign the form.
And my understanding of Robert's Rules of Order is that in order for a nomination to be official, there has to be a primary and a second. And so a board member needs to have at least 2 votes on the nomination sheet in order for their nomination to be valid.
Executive Director Fox or Board Counsel, do you agree with that statement?
AG Bertoni, I haven't reviewed Robert's Rules of Order, and I don't believe the board has adopted it yet. I would defer to Executive Director Fox.
President Doyle, can you restate your question? Because your question is each member check off 2 members that they want to nominate?
Board Member Doyle, in a open balloting process, a board member would voice that they nominate board member A, and for that to be corroborated by a second. Once a nomination has been made and seconded, then that nomination is valid. The nominee can, of course, decline the nomination, but it's not that candidate is not slated and valid for the vote until that nomination has been motioned and seconded. And therefore, if we're using this form, a candidate has to at least have 2 nominations. That would be in lieu of a motion and a second.
This is just.
So AAG Bertoni, I think process-wise, what will happen is Executive Director Fox will have the nomination forms, and he'll read out, just hypothetically, nomination of board member Jafar Moore. I'm using it as an example because I know you're coming up. And then he asks if there's a second for the nomination. And it doesn't have to have been on the form. Anyone can second. Then they would say board member Smith, I second. If we find that a nomination is not seconded and the person who is nominated wants to be considered, we will take a brief recess and assess how to proceed. But I'm confident that, I'm optimistic that we'll work.
Thank you for the clarification. So I asked, and then a board member may use this form to nominate more than one person as well.
Board Member Hemmons, what's the
One
purpose
per
of four
form.
It should be,
Have the four forms for each?
Staff member Melvin, in theory, it should be one nomination, one name per form. That's why I gave you multiple forms.
So Board Member Hemmons, so that means we could nominate 4 people.
Yes,
Each. position.
yes. And if you need more, we can print a few more.
Could have your Board Member Hemmons, your first, second, third, fourth.
Yes. So then we will pick up the nomination form and then, like he stated, Executive Director Fox will then read it, confirm that is who you chose for the record. So the people on the virtual call, because they can't see your paper form, we have to verbally state who each of you are nominating.
AG Bertoni, just respectfully, your forms are public records, so just remember that as you work on them.
Member Beeman. So, board member Doyle speaking, board members at this time, please fill out your forms, to nominate, a board member for board vice president and use one form per nominee. If you need more than the forms provided, then please raise your hand and staff member Melvin will assist you with that.
This is
Member Chin.
Board Member Chin. I am your, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that we would do, that we were doing the first nomination. So you collect the first page. And then if something doesn't happen with that first round, then we go to the second page and do it again? Or,
Vice President Chin, thank you. What I would advise is your top candidate, use one sheet for your top candidate. We're doing vice president right now. Go for your top candidate, and then we would go through the process, and depending on where things fall at that point, if we need to do more voting, then we will at that point.
We'll use pages.
We'll
2,
use pages 2
3.
through 5.
You don't need to do anything on pages 2, 3, or 4 at this
Do what?
current time.
Also, staff member Melvin, I forgot to mention, you will notice that board members DeBarmore and Doyle are not eligible, so their names are not listed as a choice. Yeah.
Board Member Hemmons, do the outgoing members get to vote?
Yes.
Member Patel. Board member, we abstain.
May and board member Doyle, the question on the floor is, may a board member choose to abstain from nominating?
From this process, because I think we are going to get 3 new board member next board meeting, and I personally feel like we should have done the officer election when all the 3 board member on board. That's the one, that's just my rationale. So
AG Bertoni, there's no obligation to nominate anyone for any position. A board member could sit silently through this process if they chose to do that.
okay.
If you don't mind, if you're complete, if you just raise your hand and Chelsea will come around and pick up nomination forms. Thank you.
Getting you to the second one.
You have 8 forms turned in. Go ahead and read. Board member Tell nominated the following board member for vice president. Board member Rosemary Hemmings. Is that correct, board member Patel? Board member President Doyle nominated the following board member for board vice president, board member Jennifer Hall. President Doyle, is that correct?
Board Member Doyle, yes.
Board member Beeman nominated the following board member for vice president, board member Jennifer Hall, board member Beeman, is that correct? Board member Vice President Chen nominated the following board member for vice president, board member Jennifer Hall. Vice President Chen, is that correct?
Yes, board member Chin.
Board member Hemmings nominated the following board member for board vice president. Board member Rich Joyce, board member Hemmings, is that correct?
Yes.
Board member DeBarmore nominated the following board member for board vice president. Board member Rich Joyce. Board member DeBarmore, is that correct?
Yes.
Board member Jennifer Hall nominated the following board member for board vice president. Board member Rich Joyce. Board member Hall, is that correct?
Yes.
Member Rich Joyce nominated the following board member for board vice president. Board member Rich Joyce. Board member Joyce, is that correct?
That's correct.
Board member Hemmings, do you accept nomination?
I'm honored, but no.
Board member Hall, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Board member Joyce, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
AG Bertoni, we haven't, as the board knows, the adoption of Robert Rules of Order is later on the agenda. What I'd like to do is, we have 3 nominations for board member Hall for the position of vice president and 4 nominations for the, position of, board member Joyce for that position. It appears to me to satisfy, to the extent that there is a requirement for a second, it appears that there are multiple nominations of each person. President Doyle, would you like us to do a formal nomination and second process, or is it satisfactory to you for purposes of moving forward?
Board Member Doyle, this is satisfactory to move forward.
Is there a motion to move forward to elect board member Hall as the board vice president?
Member Doyle, I make that motion. For a second,
Member Beeman seconds.
now call roll to move to elect board member Hall as board vice president. Board President Doyle, yes.
Board member Chin, yes?
Member Beeman,
Yes.
board member DeBarmore. Member Hall,
And
board member Hemmons,
She abstained.
No.
member Joyce.
No.
Member Patel,
No,
board member Doyle speaking, motion fails with 3 yay votes, 4 nay votes, and 1 abstain. Executive Director Fox,
Is there a motion to move forward to elect board member Joyce as the board vice president?
board member Doyle, I make that motion.
I'll second.
Now I'll call roll vote to move to elect board member Joyce as the board vice president. Board President Doyle, yes.
Member Chin, yes?
Member Beeman, yes. Member DeBarmore, yes.
Member Hall, yes.
Member Hemmons, yes.
Joyce abstains.
Member Patel, yes.
And carries to elect board member Joyce as board vice president with 1 abstention being board member Joyce. Congratulations, board member Joyce, for having been elected board vice president for the coming year.
Thank you.
We'll now accept nominations for the president of the board. Please we'll use the same process that we've just used for vice president. Please fill out 1 sheet of paper with your nomination for board president.
We received all nominations from board members. Board member Hemmings nominated the following board member for board president. All members, is that correct? Board member Hemmings?
Correct. Board member Hemmons.
Board member Joyce nominate the following board member for board president. Board member Kat Chen, is that correct? Board member Joyce?
That's correct.
Board member Vice President Chen nominate the following board member for president. Board member Kat Chen, is that correct? Vice President Chen?
That's correct.
Board member Hall nominates the following board member for board president. Board member Kat Chen, is that correct? Board member Hall? Board member DeBarmore nominate the following board member for board president. Board member Kat Chen, is that correct? Board member DeBarmore?
Yes.
Board member Beeman nominate the following board member for board president. Board member Kat Chen, is that correct? Board member Beeman?
Yes.
Board member President Doyle nominate the following board member for board president. Board member Kat Chen, is that correct? President Doyle?
Is
Board member Patel nominate the following board member for board president. Abstain, is that correct? Board member Patel?
Yes, that is correct.
Board Member Beeman, do you accept a nomination for president?
No.
Board Member Hall, do you accept the nomination for president? Board Member Hemmings, do you accept the nomination for president?
No.
Board Member Joyce, do you accept the nomination for president?
No.
Member Patel, do you accept the nomination for president?
Honor, but you know, there's no way.
Board Member Chin, do you accept the nomination for president?
Humbly, yes.
Board Member Doyle, is there a motion to move to elect Board Member Chin as the board president?
Member Beeman, so moved.
Seconded, Board Member Joyce. Motion and seconded has been made to move to elect Board Member Chin as board president. I will now call roll. Board President Doyle, yes. Board Vice President Chin.
I'll abstain.
Member Beeman.
Yes.
Member DeBarmore. Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Hemmons.
Yes.
Member Joyce. Yes. Board Member Patel.
Staying.
Motion passes with board members Chin and Patel abstain. Congratulations, Board Member Chin, for having been elected board president for the coming year. We will now recognize outgoing board members Barmore and Doyle. There's some typographical errors in my copy, so I'm a little bit confused about what's coming next. So. Okay. Good, all right.
Recognize you, sir.
Okay, if I begin. And can we put Rachel like in the center of our table here?
Just
You're
don't
in the
look
hot
into the
seat.
light. Don't look into the light.
Don't look at the light. Don't follow the lights, I guess. Board President Doyle speaking. In recognition of Rachel DeBarmore, we have the following comments. Rachel has brought a wealth of knowledge and leadership, as well as a strong retail and health system background to the board's conversations during her years of service. This perspective has been critical when evaluating situations related to patient safety and how our decisions may impact this very complex work environment. Rachel was appointed from July 1st, 2016. That was like in the last decade, to June 30th, 2024. Some of board's accomplishments or activities during Rachel's tenure on the board include celebration of the board's 125th anniversary in 2016. Pharmacy technician members were added to the board in 2016. We hosted the 2016 NABP AACP district meeting. We participated in the board strategic planning process and meetings. The board had received the Fred T. Mahaffey Award in 2017 for pharmacist prescribing of contraceptive therapy. Implementing legislative directives and OARs to improve equity of pharmacy services, such as pharmacist prescriptive authority for contraceptives and naloxone. Public Health and Pharmacy Formulary Advisory Committee was established. Navigated the entire COVID-19 public health emergency and other public health emergencies. We established limited English proficiency labeling, established prescription readers for the visually impaired, implemented cultural competency and pain management CE requirements, wrote rules for remote dispensing site pharmacies, prescription pharmacy prescription lockers, pharmacy prescription kiosks, as well as approving PHP FAC protocol and formulary compendium. And Rachel also participated in 3 executive director recruitment periods. The board adopted 281 permanent rules, maybe something that she does not want to take over, and 15 temporary rules during her tenure with the board. And this does not include rules adopted during this meeting. Rachel participated in the Pharmacy Technician Rules Advisory Committee back in March through September of 2021. She participated in the May 4th, 2023 CDTM work group. She was involved in implementation of a new, more accessible board website, the implementation of a new licensing database and eGov for online services for licensee. She assisted in the transition to biannual licensure for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, plus related licensure and renewal requirements. For example, continuing education. She helped to establish rules around PIC responsibilities in the work environment. Served as board president from July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. Served as board vice president the preceding year. Rachel's contributions to board decisions and rulemaking have been invaluable and serve to advance the board's mission of public health, safety, and welfare. Rachel, your presence on the board will be missed, and we wish you all the best in the future. On behalf of the board and agency staff, thank you for your dedicated service to the board and to the citizens of Oregon. Got a flag. Go for it. Flag day. Flag day.
So, in recognition of our outgoing president, Ian Doyle, on the board with accomplishments and activities from 2020, that famous year, to 2024. Ian has brought a unique voice to the board as pharmacy educator and pharmacist. His wealth of knowledge and leadership has been invaluable to the board's conversations for the last 4 years, including the dry wit, which I have enjoyed. This perspective has been critical when evaluating situations related to patient safety and how our decisions may impact the very diverse work environment. Some of the board's accomplishments, activity during Ian's tenure on the board include, and have overlapped with many of Ms. DeBarmore's, implementing legislative directives and OERs to improve equity in pharmacy services, such as navigating the entire COVID-19 public health emergency, which is no small feat. Limited English proficiency labeling, prescription readers for the visually impaired, cultural competency and pain management CE requirements, remote dispensing site pharmacies, pharmacy prescription lockers, pharmacy prescription kiosks, feedback protocol and formulary compendium, participated in executive director recruitments. Was it 1 or 2? Board adopted 257 permanent rules and 13 temporary rules during Ian's tenure with the board, not including rules adopted at this meeting. Participated in the Continuing Education Rules Advisory Committee 521 to 122 and the Interns Work Group 11823 to 5323. Rules around PIC responsibilities and work environment, served as board president from 7/1/23 to 6/30/24, and vice president the year prior. Ian's thoughtful contributions to policy discussions, board decisions, and rulemaking have been invaluable and served to advance the board's mission of public health, safety, and welfare. Ian, your presence on the board will be missed, and you will, we wish you all the best as you retire. On behalf of the board and agency staff, thank you for your dedicated service to the board and to the citizens of Oregon.
Yeah,
Board
member Emmons, can I ask a question?
Before,
We know who the new board members are going to be?
And the staff, Executive Director Fox announced them all earlier today. So he did the PPAC members and the board members who are going to be joining this.
board member Doyle, time check is 10:08. Planning for lunch at approximately 12 p.m. We'll now focus our discussion on parliamentary board processes with staff member Fox.
I got demoted. Oh. Just joking.
Reading my script. Okay.
I'll take it. It was me.
Thank you, President Doyle. President Doyle and members of the board, board meeting proceedings and manager thereof have been a source of discussions for board members and agency staff over the last year. Agency staff have since worked to develop resources for board members regarding meeting proceedings and are provided best practices for board proceedings utilizing Robert's Rules of Order modified for parliamentary procedures. The rules of parliamentary procedures provide the means of orderly and expeditious disposition of matters before the board and how board members should interact with each other. The most commonly known use of parliamentary procedures is the Robert's Rules of Order, whereas the newly revised 12th edition by Henry and Robert is the advised edition for governing bodies to use. At the April board meeting, Brandy Hemsley from the Governor's Office of Executive Appointments gave a presentation on the various forms of Robert's Rules of Order and how the governor expects boards and commissioners to govern themselves. To the agency staff's knowledge, the board has not voted on the rules of procedure that govern the board. At this meeting, the board is recommended to adopt by reference Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 12th edition, as the governing parliamentary procedure as outlined by the Oregon DOJ manual and Appendix K, parliamentary procedure, quorums, and voting, which is for quote unquote the Green Book. You can find a PDF version of the Green Book in your Microsoft Teams under your board member resources folder that's been provided by agency staff. Rules of parliamentary procedure do not have the force of law. It may be waived, modified, or disregarded without affecting the validity of the board's decisions. Its purpose is to act as a guide and support effective and efficient management of meetings that includes facilitating discussions for proper decision-making. For a Robert's Rule cheat sheet and best practices, agency staff has also provided that in your Microsoft Teams board member resources folder. Statutes, not parliamentary procedure, specify quorums and voting procedure requirements. The quorum and voting requirements for the Oregon Board of Pharmacy are governed by ORS 689-185, parent 4. The board was previously provided legal advice on voting and quorums, as well as agency staff have uploaded more information in your Microsoft Teams board member resource folder. The board does have to follow the statutory requirements for quorum voting, which is table 2. And that same table, the formulary committee, the PFAC, has to follow table 1 under our statutes. That that's high level on the parliamentary procedures. President Doyle, I'll turn it back over to you for any discussion of the board and recommendation of voting on Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 12th edition.
Member Doyle, thank you. Executive Director Fox. With regard to opening discussion now, I asked board members to see if they have any questions about the introduction that Executive Director Fox had provided and or questions they have about Robert's rules and or are there other suggestions that they may have. Following where we left off in order of board members initiating the conversation, I asked for Board Member Joyce to begin with his comments, please.
Board Member Joyce, no, it looks like a great read. I'll put that under my pillow. No comments, thank you.
Member Patel.
Joe, yeah, I got that on Wednesday and no, I did not read it. No comments now.
Board Member Doyle, don't believe that there was an expectation to have read Robert's rules cover to cover.
He's going to ask the quiz, like, all right. Yeah.
But we had had this as a discussion item at a previous meeting. I believe it was the May meeting where Executive Director Fox had explained the necessity and requirement of us to follow a particular rule book. At that time, there appeared to be consensus that we wanted to use Robert's rules as opposed to any other mechanism. And Executive Director Fox today had recapped some of the recommendations that we as an agency have received. Board Member Hemmons. Member DeBarmore.
No comment.
Member Hall.
Comments.
Member Beeman.
No comments or questions.
Board Member Doyle, I think this is the appropriate process to be used as opposed to any other alternative. Board Member Chin.
Member Chin, no comments.
During limited discussion, I will ask if there is a motion to adopt Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition as the parliamentary board process, except as otherwise provided by law, and except where the Board of Pharmacy directs or acts to the contrary. Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition for the conduct of the board meetings shall govern parliamentary processes of this public body. Member Doyle, I will make that motion. Is there a second?
Member Bean, second.
We'll now call roll for the adoption of Robert's Rules of Order newly revised 12th edition for the board proceedings. Board President Doyle, yes.
Member Chin, yes.
Member Bean, yes. Member Farmer, yes.
Member Hall, yes.
Board Member Hemmings abstain.
Board Joyce, yes.
Board Member Patel abstain.
That motion passes with board members Hemmons and Patel abstains. Thank you. We will now continue with discussion items, starting with review of annual board best practices and annual performance progress reports. results with staff member Fox. These are mailing F as in Foxtrot and F1.
Melvin,
Give me just a moment.
that's two.
What, staff member? Oh, jeez.
Right.
Getting killed,
Director Fox.
killed out there. All right. I'm just sharing it with the public. We're all set. This is mailing F.
And that has the results.
Yes,
So,
this,
okay.
sorry, staff member Melvin, what you're seeing here is this was provided to the board and the public for the April board meeting, and it just talks about, it defines, you know, what the board best practices measure is. So it's sort of the cover letter.
So from there, board members, we just wanted to just share a few just high level and answer any questions and just go through just the results from the survey that you all completed on yourselves for the 2023 calendar year period. And it was just 5 different questions. And as you remember, me stating previously at the April board meeting that the first 15 questions are those questions that part of the survey that's required of the board to respond. And we packaged that up and provided to the legislature by October 1st to be part of the budget process. The other questions that you responded, the other 4 or 5 questions you responded to is really for the agency itself. And those questions about how much time you spend on meetings and preparation, orientation. Those questions will help us do better in the future and make the revisions to our agency operational process as appropriate. But of this survey that you completed, question 6, I'll start there, where some board members felt that you were not appropriately involved with policy activities. And that's one aspect that we'd love to hear more from the board on why a good portion of the members felt that you were not involved in those policy matters. I think it's 5-3. 5 members stated that you believe that you were, and 3 members believe that you were not. I'll just go through each of the questions that I just pulled out, and then can open up for any dialogue if that's okay, President Doyle.
Board President, yes.
Okay. And then I'll just go to question 7, saying some board members felt that the policy option packages did not align with the mission and goals. And then question 9, some of the board members felt that the board did not periodically review financial information and audit findings when they were provided. Then the last 2 questions that really stuck out, which are more for the agency perspective, is questions 16 and 18. Question 16, board members felt that the process of onboarding new board members does not work well. And would love feedback on how you believe that we could do better for future board members, especially since we have 3 new board members coming on board in a matter of a couple of weeks. And then question 18, where half the board felt that the workload of each of the board meetings is manageable, and half of the board felt like it's not. So those first 3, 6, 7, and 9 are real questions that will be going to the legislature, and then really 16 and 18 is more agency driven and understanding. But I turn it back over to you, President Doyle, members of the board, to open up any dialogue and discussion.
Board Member Doyle, will open the floor for discussion on question 6. The board is appropriately involved in policy making decisions. We'll go around and round robin, and please provide any feedback that you have with regard to the statement, how you interpreted the question. If you had difficulty understanding it, was there not enough background information that was supplied by the board for you to adequately answer the question? And or perhaps why you had what was your motivation for your particular vote? So starting with board member Patel, what comments do you have on question 6?
Well, that's what my understanding that involved in policy making, just like example, we got the survey about the policy topic. Then we have to rank and we ranked, but it's not. Well, the topic was predetermined and then you have to rank those topic. It's not like what topic do you want to discuss? So it's like, to me, it's like you have choice, but the choices are distinct. The other thing is we know the agenda on the day off, so I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, like you will know like what's in the agenda, what policy we are going to discuss or anything. Like we don't have to say as a board member that which policy I think like we should discuss, or like we don't even have options. So that's what I feel like. I don't think so. I personally, and that's my opinion, that I appropriately involved with the policy making activities. So that's just my take on it. And that's how I interpreted that question.
Member Evans?
Member Hemmings, purposes of the board. How is policy being defined? What is policy? Versus how is policy being defined? Anyway, I don't have any comment. It's just, I don't. Board Member Hemmings, I feel that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes before things get to the board. Are those things considered policy? Is, I guess, a clarification I would need, and maybe I would need to give you examples. I think the example Board Member Patel gave is an example where the categories were already pre-discussed somewhere. And then, so we were given those as options. We were not asked, for example, to say, we want to do the survey. What are some of the things that you think should be on the survey? Is that considered policy? I don't know. But that's an example. Like, there's just a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. And then it limits, I think, board's ability to really have really informed decision-making before we move forward in terms of decision-making. And that's why a lot of times I'm hesitant to vote on things because I don't have the background information. And there is limited tolerance, and I get it, from the board as it relates to spending time to really offer that background information. So that would be why I would say no to this question.
And just to somewhat respond as best as I can. So as far as policy is the direction that the board gives staff, and using that same example with the options, those options were conversations that this board and during this period over the last few years have raised several times with staff members about things that you want the staff to work on. One of the issues that the staff has had is there was in some parts not a consensus of the majority of the board. So it may be certain board members state certain things on the record during the meeting. And so using that document and framework that we provided and that folks voted on gives us that policy direction on this is where you want us to spend our time. Because before it would come up in meeting, refrigeration. And staff would go and work on that, but that may be something from one or two members of the board is not majority. And so what we're trying to focus on is the direction that this board provides us is make sure that it's majority and it's the direction that you want. As it relates to now or in the future, if there's policy direction that this board will want any period of time, this board can state that at a public meeting, at one of the board meetings, giving me that direction to go off and do X. And so all of that happens within the board. There's some agency policy direction from myself running the agency that is based germane on the direction I get from the governor's office or our COO within DAS. So there's personnel and HR and day-to-day policy making and running an agency that happens behind the scenes. But most of what happens behind the scenes is the direction that this board provides me and agency staff.
Board Member Hemmings, thank you for that additional information. My understanding of these questions that this was related to 2023. My responses was based on 2023. That being said, I still feel maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. But I still feel that there is decisions that are made outside of the board members. All of the board members, there may be some, maybe I'm wrong, that occurs, then it comes to the full board. But by the time it gets to us, I feel there's already a decision that is already embedded in it. And it's not necessarily board staff, right? I just think that, and maybe it's the board president's role that I'm not understanding, like the board president meets with board staff and there's certain decisions that are made. And then it comes to the board, and I think that's what I'm struggling with.
Absolutely correct. In how for pharmacy we operate, majority of the power from the board is vis-a-vis through the president role and setting the agenda, what's on the agenda in collaboration with the executive director and agency staff. So yes, and that vantage point, there are conversations and actions that will come out of there and be brought to the full body. But even when those decisions are brought here, it's still up to the majority if that's the direction you want to go. Reverend,
Just to clarify, I think maybe there is a difference between what the board president and works with board staff. The board president isn't working on the actual policies and rule package stuff. I don't believe.
Yeah.
So I just want to clarify that to board member Hemmings. The board president is doing process things about agenda setting and things that make the meeting run. But in terms of your concern that decisions are made between these two entities, and then it comes out and we have a discussion on, particularly regarding all of the rule packages, that does not occur. So that's what I wanted, because that's the implication I'm hearing from board member Hemmings. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm hearing.
I'm not gonna correct you. Cause I don't know if that's true.
And that's what I'm trying to clarify for
I
you.
still don't know if that's true. Just because you said it doesn't mean it's.
So I would like for the executive director to address what I understand is the actual concern.
And yes, I would say ditto to what you stated, because that's accurate, at least how I've seen it happen in the last 8 months since I've been here.
Michelle?
But now I'm even more confused. So just for the example, we are talking about the rulemaking policy. We got petition from the OSPA about the remote dispensing side, then all majority we denied, but then there is a mailing E1 is already set up as a S bar. So how would, like, it's just so confusing to me. And then we already discussed about the mileage issue before. And then we send that one to rulemaking, but then there is a petition, but then there is another one is a E1. Like the whole thing is just so confused me. Like I was like, what? So we denied, and now we are going to take piece by piece. ASPAR is already created. I don't know with whose direction, by who. So.
So Board Member Doyle, I think that your example is noted. I think that board staff will be able to take that back and mull it over and see with future leadership how they'll be able to better improve transparency as things are coming to the board. But I think providing a direct answer to that now is outside of the scope of the conversation, which is regarding number 6.
Board Member Hemmings, I want to make sure that I clarify something. I am not saying that the board staff is making decisions without the board members' involvement. What I am saying is that I think, so my 2023, that there may have been communications and decision-making that was occurring with members of the board, maybe the board president, that did not necessarily include all of the board members. That is my thoughts, 2023.
You, Member DeBarmore?
There's to preparing for a meeting, prepare all of the pieces that we need in a way that we can digest it in a reasonable time. Not have to. I think of how much has changed over the years, and it used to be a rule package came ish. Now it's a rule package every meeting, and not to mention compliance days and they put all of that together in a way that we can digest it and not overwhelm all the rest of the things we have to do in our own lives, right? We've asked them to change a lot to accommodate us. And there are conversations that have to occur. Absolutely. The president has to take on a lot in that role. So left to you all. And has to help make those decisions in the moments. I will say, having been president and then not being president, I felt like, wow, I don't know what's going on. I feel really weird because what's happening. Because you are more in the know when you are president, absolutely. I would highly recommend if the vice president needs to be involved more. Add that.
all the time, the vice president participated in agenda planning. So there was continuity in all the conversations, and as there was a transition from vice president to president. Whole year, the vice president was participating in all of those same conversations. So there was consistency as things transitioned. If there's any way to get back to that, I highly recommend it. It was so much better, and it felt like there was so much more continuity in what was happening. But you have to follow and dig in every meeting. And you have to remember the things that happened last meeting and 2 meetings ago and 3 meetings ago and 7 meetings ago and 4 years ago. This, all those things on that list for all the things that we said. I need you guys to do every single one of them. And or things that are required to be touched because they have to touch the rules every 5 years. Set the sets of the rules. So we can't possibly know it all. And function normal daily lives. If we want to know what's going on in all the things, we need to be a staff member. Need to be executive director. And that's not our role. Our role is not to know it all. But we have to do the work. We have to read things. We have to understand what's in our iPads. We have to be prepared for the meeting. Because all of it's in, all the pieces have been in. They're really inappropriate. If you choose to be.
Member Hall?
Member Hall. In 2023, I attended 2 meetings, so I don't know, I have much to say, but I guess I took this question more of the bigger picture, what we're allowed to do outside of our scope, and so that's why I kind of said no.
Member Beaman?
Board Member Beaman, I think Board Member DeBarmore phrased it well as I could. So I echo many of her comments and thought of something and not forgetting the spot. I'm sorry. So thank you.
Board Member Doyle, I support the comments made by Board Member DeBarmore. I have no additional comments to make. Board Member Chin?
Member Chin echoes Board Member DeBarmore's very well thought out understanding of board policy and our role in that, and that it is all in our iPads. It's just a lot, and so yes, and it takes time. And it is a lot to remember, and that it is not our job to be agency staff. We're doing this 5 days a week, every day. We're doing this 3 days every 2 months. We can't know it all and do it all. Thank you for thoughtful comments.
Now move to question 7.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, my pen got ahead of itself. Please, Board Member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, so, policy is either state driven or, it comes from the constituents. So, the state has its House bills that come down to us and, we implement it, we adjust it. The constituents, have their ideas. And it does seem, as board member Rosemary Hemmings, had stated, that by the time it gets to us, it's already set, right? It already seems like this is what they want. And by the time we deliberate or debate over it, it doesn't seem like can make too many changes to it. I know that we have when it comes from the constituents, a lot of times we have the work groups. We have had the compounding work group, we had intern work groups, and that helps, but it just seems like the board, by the time we get to the meeting, we don't really know what happened in those work groups. I think that needs to be more available for us to see the comments and to see what came out of those work groups, to see what direction policy is going, what direction rules are going towards. For example, the compounding work group, we had some feedback from one, I believe, of the members there that, hey, this isn't what I said. So I'm not sure how that happened. So it just seems like when the board goes to their meetings, yes, there were those work groups, the intern work group, compounding, et cetera. But sometimes I feel like we don't know what happened in those work groups, and by the time we get to it, because we have to look at compliance cases and all these other things to study, approximately 16 to 24 hours before we receive it. It sometimes that's overwhelming, and it's a lot of rules, and as we know, it takes years sometimes to have an idea and initiate rules for that idea. And that's why I keep saying, like, with the certification for pharmacy technicians, I keep saying 2026, 2028, because I know it takes a while for an idea to become rule. So anyways, I kind of wanted to echo, previous comments from Rachel DeBarmore and as well as Rosemary Hemmings that I definitely agree with what was stated there, but thank you.
Good, Director Fox.
Thank you, Board Member Joyce, and it's just want to put out there, whether it's a work group or RAC and AAG Hunt, we'll bring forward in a few months and talk about and carry on the conversation we had in April about the difference between the two. But the main distinction where what happens in the RAC or the work group that may be stated is they're advising the director and the agency, and there's nothing statutorily where what comes to you is exactly, will be stated exactly what was stated in the work group or the RAC from a state standpoint. So it is the advice coming to the director and the agency, and then we take in that consideration with everything else and provide a recommendation to the board. So I just want to be very clear, just the process from the state side.
Board Member Joyce, just to respond, maybe I'm asking for some transparency when it comes to those RAC and meetings and work group meetings. Are the minutes available for those?
Can I,
They are, and the video as well, right? Okay, all right, so.
Board Member Doyle would also point out that staff member Davis had been providing the votes of said RAC or work group members so when we were talking earlier yesterday about the compounding, she specifically identified that there were 4 votes for yay, 3
Right.
votes for no.
Right, I mean, that last yesterday's meeting was a lot more clear than previous meetings as far as that type of information. But that's the type of information that I feel I need to get the idea of what policies or what road, what avenue they're going to, or what direction they're going in, so to speak.
Member Beeman?
I remembered my comment. the role of the board members and the option we always have as board members is to vote no. To, if we disagree with it in discussion, make our voices heard, make our experience known. That's why we're here, is because of all of our different backgrounds, all of our different perceptions, all of what we've seen, whether it be in the practice of pharmacy or as public members outside of pharmacy, or as patients, no matter what type of member you are, you have your voice based on your experiences. And so even if we don't agree, and I'm oftentimes an example of this, with how things are prepared, we can vocalize that. We make changes to language and rule packages and directions of things every meeting, and we can't. I admit to being bogged down sometimes with it too, of this doesn't feel good to me, but then we discuss it and the board gets, but we aren't one voice in our, that I matter most of all, that hearing other people, I think, is how we as board can use those voices to come together for what the board's direction is, even if it differs in the way it may have been prepared for that particular goal or topic. So I think keeping in mind, and sometimes even if we're not fully understanding that part of receive or fully understanding the item, asking the questions, using your voice to clarify, and using your experience and your outlook to come into it so that we can get the broader picture. Because as it's being prepared for us, so that we can consume and come here and process everything that we need to do, that is one perspective. It is not necessarily right or wrong, but we all have our own perspectives too, and we need to embrace those, and rather than being upset with the perspective presented, trying to look at it through the lens of what might be better from my experiences and everybody's. So I think just remembering that your voice is still there no matter what's presented preliminarily. Thank you.
Member Doyle, we move to question number 7. The agency's policy option packages are aligned with their mission and goals. If any board members if a board member has specific comments with regard to the policy option packages, then please provide that information when your name is called. Board Member Hemmons.
Board Member Hemmons, the issue is not with board staff. My issue is with the board members. I do not feel that it is that we should normalize just voting no. We don't understand what it is that we're voting on. And I don't feel that there's a lot of tolerance on this, in this board. And I'm not referring to board staff. I think they do a great job for taking the time to understand this perspective. And that's all I'm gonna say, and you can skip me going forward.
Member DeBarmore.
Member Department, I think.
Member Hall.
Member Hall, I don't have any comments. I didn't really honestly understand the question.
Beeman.
Remember me, I don't have comments.
Board Member Doyle, I agreed with this. I think that we are involved in policy option packages as much as it affects the board. We have to approve the new funding line for Chelsea Dasher, for example. And so we are involved in helping find resources for board staff, just for one example. So that's why I think that we are appropriately involved. And those things are aligned with the mission and goals of the strategic plan. Board Member Chin.
Board Member Chen, I been in agreement and I don't have any further comment.
Member Joyce.
Former Joyce, no, I agree. The strategic plan was, going to point out that, those are our ideas, that we brainstorm and put together. So when it comes to this question, I mostly agree with it.
With respect, and Board Member Patel.
Remember Patel, it's going to be about 2 years, on this board. And this is just me, my opinion, my perspective, what I think. Yeah, we have a lot more room to improve, to align with our mission and goals. So, no further comment.
Now move to board comments on question number 9. The board periodically reviews key financial information and audit findings. Board Member DeBarnwell, any comments?
Member DeBarmore, this used to look at this a lot more frequently in meetings. This is one thing that with the quantity of things that the work that has been added to the meeting. This is one area that has been skipped over, not discussed. So it is an important piece that isn't highlighted like it has been in the past. And it's just because it's always at the end of the agenda and tends to not be the item we get to. So there used to be a more robust report out on where the board is from the budget standpoint. And that hasn't been happening in the last year as robustly.
Member Hall,
Member Hall, no comments.
Member Beeman,
Member Beeman, I echo Brother DeBarmore's comments.
Member Doyle, no additional comments. Board Member Chin.
Member Chin, it is, Board Member DeBarmore, and something that I remember we used to do on a previous board, a very specific carve out where the financial person did thing and had all the charts and stuff. And instead of taking time to just go over it, it was always included in the consent agenda, and we could always, if we wanted to, pull something out of the consent agenda if there were questions about it. But we always had the pie chart, the information, the numbers available with every board meeting to know where we were and had that opportunity to see that. So that's just a thought process. Thank you.
Member Joyce.
Board Member Joyce, well, Karen McLean did an excellent job of presenting the information, financial information. When she did that, it seems to me that we may need the presentation to happen more often, maybe every other meeting as opposed to what seemed like annual, right? It was at every meeting, yeah. So it needs to be more often, but when Karen McLean did it, she did an excellent job, but it does need to happen more often. Presentation of financial information.
Member Patel.
But yeah, so you're right, like in my 11 board meetings, I only see 3 times, probably, yeah, about 3 times Karen McLean present financial information in 5 minutes. So I mean, what can you do in 5 minutes? So that's what I said, no. And I don't even know what audit findings are. What are kind of audits performed, I guess, by agency for the financial information? I don't.
Remember, I did staff, I got a promotion now. Yeah, I gotta make up, right? Executive Director Fox, do you want to respond to that or just take that as information?
I'll take it as information, go back with most of the audits, yeah. With presume would have been shared with the board where the Secretary of State, case in point, Secretary of State just did a review of all small boards and commissions last year. And it's on the Secretary of State's website, and he looked at various information to make sure that we're abiding by state statutes. So that would be, and if there's an audit finding, we would know about that, and it would be incumbent upon the executive director to respond to whether those findings are. And it would be, I presume previously it was shared with the board, and there was some conversation there about that at a meeting. As it relates to the financial information, this board has, through the time that Ms. McLean, before she retired in the last couple of weeks, provided that financial information to the board. But I also just want to just recognize what has happened in 8 months. You have a new executive director. The Governor Kotek has changed the budget process, and we're all going through that. There's a lot more expectations put on. So we're adjusting to everything operationally. And one of the main reasons why this meeting, you have the budget folks coming later this afternoon to talk about the budget and where we are and where we're heading as we're going into this new 25-27 budget process. And that's something that we'll talk with DAS and figure out the right cadence. Every meeting, I'm not sure that I can commit to that. But what that frequent basis is, I'll be very transparent and let you know once I go back with our budget and financial folks on what can be done, because the difference you'll see moving forward is not going to be a person from the agency. We're going to be having our fiscal analysts and our CFO analysts assisting and providing that information, because those are the folks that when you looked at the previous budget, because we're a small agency, we pay for DAS to support us with the budget and finances. They're the ones that's actually doing it. Agency staff, we corral that information and data points and send it over there to the respective agencies. And so that's how it works. And you'll hear a little bit more later this afternoon.
Member Doyle speaking. Board Member Emmons, you asked to be not called on for this round. We begin the next question, which was 16 about onboarding. And if you have any recommendations, well, perhaps you can explain why you voted no on this, and or recommendations briefly that you might have for board staff, as particularly as we have 3 new board members onboarding here in July. Board Member Hall.
Member Hall. It was difficult for me when I was new, which I feel still am new, because things were presented in a way, you know, I'm getting all this information, and then there was a lot of changes coming on with the new executive director, and there was just a lot of things changing, so I couldn't really get my feet on the ground, I felt, because of all that. And then I could have like a buddy where I could ask questions. I feel like I can't even take notes to ask questions later. You know, I'm really busy outside of here, so it's just overwhelming sometimes. So I still have a lot of questions.
Member Beeman.
Member Beeman, from looking back to my history on the board, it seems that, and from hearing Board Member Hall's comments, it sounds like, unfortunately, that new board members aren't necessarily supported in the same way they once were. I understand there's reasons why that are perceived differently by the decision makers right now, that it can't be like it was, you know. But I think that we need to find an alternative solution, because it is a lot. There is, I understand, you know, a great
and when I came on too, for your training where you come in the office and you do receive that, but there's so many things that are happen as you go that if you don't know who to ask, don't know, understand the process, and it's not a matter of process. It's not a matter of discussing information. It's a matter of what does this mean? Because it's the government speak, not the pharmacy speak that I know. They're two different languages that we have to try to merge together from the board member perspectives. And so it's hard to not have somewhat of a, I'll say, translator, to use that same example, help you align with what understanding what this government speak is and what that means in my day to day. I think it's unfortunate because it not having that support necessarily going beyond the initial kind of training course, for lack of a better term, is a bit slower for board members to feel comfortably adjusted to the pace of the meetings that we have to keep now. Questions get answered, and I'm not trying to say that they don't, but sometimes when it's go, 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 and we have a buzzer buzzing at us with lights flashing, you don't feel comfortable asking for clarifications on things because of time, because we see these agendas and trying to respect that we need to get through the agendas. So I think we need to brainstorm, because it sounds like we need to change, but what we are currently, the space we're in isn't supporting new board members adequately. Thank you.
Board Member Doyle. Think that for every board member starting anew, it's difficult, and I hope every board member will provide themselves some grace in the fact that it is difficult to assimilate to, and everybody has similar difficulties. I appreciated the patience that particularly then Board President Beeman and staff member Efremoff provided me my first months here because I was raising my hand saying point of order quite frequently, and appreciated the feedback that I was given in real time. I have been advised by staff member Melvin that she is frequently extended her assistance or services to new board members over the last couple of years. And I am trying to link that to the work-life balance comments that board member Hall provided. And then using the analogy of brainstorming that board member Beeman had said, obviously a reach out mechanism is perhaps not effective, and maybe board members and board staff, the new board members coming on board with board staff, try to figure out a mechanism that is helpful to them. Would it be setting up a specific 1 hour meeting 1 hour before, or for 1 hour sometime before the upcoming board member to review processes, mechanisms? It's not about talking about the policies themselves, but it's just the nuts and bolts of the meeting, and questions could, and discussion could help facilitate that board members ease with participating effectively and confidently in the board meeting. Board Member Chin.
Board Member Chin, don't know if there's an opportunity to train board members to be a board buddy that doesn't cross the line for public meeting law. And so I don't know if there's specific training that we could do to be a buddy without crossing any of those lines. But I do think that the state onboarding stuff is so primarily about meetings, meeting laws, and doing all of this stuff right, so that we're not having a public meeting anywhere. And it's not so much about navigating the packet that we get. And that's where a board buddy and I don't know how much time agency staff has to help, especially 3 new board members, with just the navigation of this. That was really confusing to me when I first started. Yeah, the discipline packet wasn't as bad, but just understanding the different levels of licensure, but everybody that's coming on is a licensee. But the rules and where we are in the middle of some of these rules, these are, things that are coming back and what the highlights mean and, where we are in the process of each thing without talking about the policy, but just explaining the setup and why it's set up like that would, I think, be helpful. Thank you.
Member Joyce?
Yeah, so, board member Joyce, so when we were allowed to speak freely and talk about
Not necessarily freely.
oh, well, when we were given that opportunity to talk about policies and things like that, this was the first thing I brought up, onboarding, because we're gonna have 3 new board members, and it is very possible to talk to someone who's onboarding without talking to them specifically about compliance cases, or policy or rules. It's very possible just to, guide them as far as like the order of the meetings, like what's important, what do you look at first, what do you study first, what's important incoming, study your administrative discussion cases, case reviews, consent agendas, written reports in that order. Just to know that it is huge before you come into a meeting. It's very possible for a board member to I think talk to or guide or help an oncoming board member just to go over the order of things, the rules. It helps from the that information that information comes from a board member. I know staff assists with that, but the board members I believe might do a better job. No offense, but when I came on through Teams because it was during COVID. It was 2021. I actually came on a year and a half after the first 4-year term because I was replacing somebody, but it was through Teams, and that was a challenge in itself. And I was given some information as far as the order of things, and that helped dramatically. So thank you.
Member Patel?
No comments.
Member Hemmons, you asked to be not called on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Member DeBarmore?
If I can jump in for the board about the orientation, you see staff, we appreciate the feedback that you're providing and similar feedback that you provided the governor's office when Brandy was here back in April as well. The state is going through a lot of changes to orientation for board members for agencies across the state. And this is helpful information that we'll make sure that we'll pass it on to Brandy and the executive appointments team so they know. Thing number 2, that there was a question that came up, and I just want to refer you back. I think it was in April about, I said to the board about those members who are rolling off the board, whether they could assist the newly elected members of leadership of the board or the new board members. And I would just refer back to that email because in there, if you're no longer on the board, after, you know, your term is up on the 30th, or, the issue that we run into is, you're not privy to the, confidential information, or shouldn't even be engaging with the new board members about the knowledge you do have, because you're not CGIS cleared, anymore, you're not part of the board. And we run into issues with serial meetings, at that point, from a public meeting standpoint. And I will say, thing number 3 is the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, OGEC, is going through rulemaking right now. One of the areas that they're looking at is, serial communications and what can board members do as far as, convening, whether you're convening outside of work, whether you're convening at a restaurant, and what authority do you have in the conversations that you have in those spaces. And so the rulemaking process is ongoing. They just commenced that process. Process will not be complete until September, early mid-September of this year. So there may be some further guidance coming. I know it doesn't help in the short term, the immediacy, but there's more likely some guidance in the short, soon future.
Member Doyle, thank you, Executive Director Fox. Board Member DeBarmore, I didn't hear an answer from you if you wanted to comment on question 16.
I don't have anything to say. Let it.
We, even the time check is 11:12. I suggest that we take a short break, 8-minute break, and we'll resume here back at 11:20 with a continuation of Executive Director Fox's presentation.